Hi, I'm not Dave, but I think I know a few things about wrestling. For those of you who are expecting to see Dave, he's not in this video, but this video sparked a conversation that needs to be addressed, and I'm going to address it. Who am I? Well, I'm Rah The Reflex, and I know about wrestling fans. Wrestling fans, they're a strange lot. And for those of you who are not wrestling fans, you probably think wrestling fans are probably some of the most idiotic and illogical people on the planet. And you will probably be partially correct because there is lacks of logic when it comes to wrestling fans. But you can't lump all wrestling fans together because there are very much different types of wrestling fans. And that's the focus of today's video, because today, Rah The Reflex talks about wrestling fans. So, what are wrestling fans? Well, simply, if we wanted to make it simple, wrestling fans are people who watch and are fans of professional wrestling. But there are different types of wrestling fans. And I'm going to break them down, starting with territory fans. Now, what are territory fans? Territory fans are usually older people or wrestling aficionados who like and gravitate toward professional wrestling during the territory era of the professional wrestling. And the territory era was every form of wrestling prior to the Vince McMahon WWE or WWF era of the 1980s. Prior to that, wrestling, as you know it, was broken up into different territories based upon regions throughout the United States. And different regions had different wrestling companies representing them that would come on local television. This is very much before everybody had access to cable or subscription television services such as On TV or Spectrum or other subscription television services that were available at that time. So, what are the different territories? Well, if you grew up in the greater Northeast like Dave, you probably grew up watching the WWF, or the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, which is currently known as the WWE under the ownership of Vincent Kennedy McMahon, and very soon under ownership of Endeavor. If you grew up outside of that, you may have watched other types of wrestling companies, such as the AWA or the American Wrestling Alliance, WCCW or World Class Championship Wrestling, NWA or the National Wrestling Alliance, and other territories, Mid-South, Midwest, Florida Championship Wrestling, and so forth. Now, because they were different territories, you got to watch wrestling from different points of view. And some territories were more theatric, others gravitated less on the theatrics and focused more on professional wrestling from a hard-nosed format. So, depending on what territory you were in, your perspective of wrestling may differ. It may not be what the WWF did or what you think wrestling is at this current moment, because the territories were very much different. And because they were local and not nationally broadcast, or in the WWE or AEW's case, globally broadcast, you didn't have to so-called cater to a huge global audience. You could focus your wrestling company on the fans that watch your wrestling company. Now, because I didn't grow up in the greater Northeast, I didn't grow up watching the WWF. I grew up watching the AWA, WCCW, and the NWA. So during the time when the WWF was doing their format of wrestling, the forms that I saw were very, very different. So, because you grew up in the territory era, a lot of times territory fans like the pureness of wrestling, or they like their wrestling to reflect how they remember wrestling, as most fans do. Because most fans, whatever your most impressionable age was, that is the type of wrestling that you more than likely are going to gravitate toward in your later years. Which brings us to company fans. Company fans are a strange lot, and they usually are the ones who are the most disturbing, especially on social media. What are company fans? Simply put, these are wrestling fans who like a particular brand or particular company over other companies. If you're a WWE fan, you like the WWE. Even when they're doing things wrong, even when they're pissing you off with storylines, even when they're not allowing your favorite wrestler to go over, you are a diehard to the WWE. And anything that doesn't resemble the WWE's format of wrestling, you're probably not going to like it, or you're going to overly criticize it, despite the fact that other companies do the same thing that the WWE does. But I digress. So if you see something that's on AEW that you don't like, you might go and you might hit social media and say all the negative things you could possibly think of and completely be oblivious to the fact that the WWE has done those exact same things. You'll make excuses for it. So is AEW fans, New Japan fans, MLW fans, and other company fans. Now, we're going to go into the casual fan. The casual fans are those fans who don't always watch wrestling. They may catch it, might be an interesting storyline that they'll get into, but they're not diehards. They're not the type of fans that's going to go do deep dives. They just want to see what is in front of them at the moment. And they may actually come in and out of wrestling or watch it, but not on a consistent basis. So they may watch the Bloodline feud, but as soon as the Bloodline feud is over with and there's nothing else compelling, they may go off into watching other programs until they overhear or someone on social media brings them back into the fold with another interesting storyline or interesting wrestler. Which brings us to yes, you guessed it, the diehard fan. These are the fans who live, breathe, and drool professional wrestling. They love wrestling. It doesn't matter where it's shown. It doesn't matter what type of wrestling it is. It doesn't even matter the company. If it's wrestling, they're going to watch it. And if it's bad wrestling, they're going to criticize it, but they're going to keep on watching it because they're diehard fans. They have a tendency to know who's the different wrestlers, their government names, who they're married to, things of this nature. And unfortunately, a lot of the diehard fans also have a tendency to believe the dirt sheets, which brings us to another type of wrestling fan, which we would call the marks. What are marks? Marks are fanatical fans who basically believe everything that they see on the screen is true. It doesn't matter how illogical it is. It doesn't matter how many times you tell them it is not true. They're believing it and they're running with it. They watch the dirt sheets. They listen to the internet wrestling community. They believe everything that comes out of Dave Meltzer's face is possibly and completely true. They believe all of the internet jargon. The rumor mill runs amok in their brain. And they have zero logic when it comes to you trying to dispel any of it. So they believe that there's a real issue between the Usos and their brother Solo Sikoa. They cannot and will not accept the fact that this is a storyline because they are marks. Which brings us to the final type of fan, which is wrestling business fans. Now, I fall under a territory fan, but I also fall under a wrestling business fan. Wrestling business fans are those fans who like professional wrestling from a business point of view. They have a tendency to follow the fiscal numbers. They follow ratings. They know who owns what companies. They know CEOs, bookers. They know wrestling jargon and can actually properly define it. They also are interested in it to such a level that a lot of them may go off and they start independent wrestling companies, or they might go join wrestling schools to become managers, referees, professional wrestlers, bookers, or they might even have stock on the New York Stock Exchange or the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. They may actually own stock in a particular company or companies. They love the business of wrestling. And the business of wrestling holds a very, very vital key to why they continue to watch wrestling. So, there are so many different types of fans that it's hard for you to pinpoint why you should blanket statement all wrestling fans, because you can't really blanket statement all wrestling fans. They're too different. Drop a comment below and let me know what type of wrestling fan you are. And if you are a wrestling fan or you're a detractor of wrestling fans, let us know. And go and check out Dave Knows Wrestling's YouTube account and check out all of his videos about the world of professional wrestling. He has great content. I should know. I'm a subscriber to his Patreon account, and you should be too. So let's go and hit up that Patreon and subscribe to Dave Knows Wrestling. And by the way, this message goes to Dave. Chicago style pizza is better. It's real pizza and it's better than New York pizza. Yes, I said it. And I meant it. I'm Rah The Reflex. You heard it here first. Peace.